Economics is about human behavior and value, and there is little difference between the economics of continents and the economics of relationships. All too often, I see women and men alike talking about what they deserve. Women say they deserve a high-value man while they are 40 years old and have 5 kids from 3 men. I also see men say they deserve a hot traditional wife when they are obese, lazy man-children who can barely afford rent. We don't deserve anything. If we want something, we have to earn it or find it and secure it ourselves. If we don't secure it ourselves, we only have ourselves to blame when we don't have what we want. It is no one else's responsibility to give us what we want. So rather than blame women for not having a girlfriend or blame all men that you can't find a man to pay for a half dozen kids that aren't his, why don't we all take a good look in the mirror and ask what we are actually worth rather than asking what we deserve? Just like in economics, nobody owes you a house or paycheck, but you have every right to go out and earn them. Because when rubber meets the road, relationships aren't about what we deserve. They are about what the other person wants. Because relationships, like all things, are governed by the concept of value. Something or someone is only worth as much as someone else thinks it is worth. You don't get to decide how much your goods are worth when you bring them to the market. You can try to sell them for a certain price, but if you set that price higher than other people, aka the market, are willing to pay, then you won't be able to sell any of your goods. The value you personally place on something only governs the minimum price you are willing to sell something for. It has no control over how much other people are willing to pay. So if you refuse to move that price, you may not sell anything. So if you refuse to budge on price, you may end up selling nothing. I hear people often say, I respect myself too much to settle for something less than I think I'm worth. Remember, there are 2 theories of value, labor and utility. Neither are assigned simply for existing. So those people who think that they should be 10s because they value themselves are simply delusional. While it is extremely important to have self-respect and self-worth, nobody but your mother will value you simply for existing. The fact that naturally beautiful and handsome people exist by itself shows that the labor theory of value doesn't apply to partner seeking. Natural aspects that we are born with or develop as we mature have certain values associated with them. But Josh, you may say, are you saying effort doesn't matter in relationships or working on yourself to become a better person? I would say that is a separate question from the value you bring to the table in a relationship. Working on yourself is important to you and your personal and spiritual development. And while labor, aka working on yourself, matters once you are in a relationship, as in working on a problem is good, it isn't the source of the value. Your partner's existing care is what gives your labor in working on yourself value. But that is all in hopes that you will functionally achieve the change you are working towards. Believing that the effort is what matters when trying to fix a problem with yourself is the labor theory of value. Understanding that achieving the change that labor was in pursuit of is what matters is the utility theory of value. In essence, the labor didn't have value and your partner's patience isn't endless. When it runs out, you have serious problems. Essentially, labor in working on yourself burns existing love as fuel in the hope that you will begin generating real change. The real utility value you could bring to the table must materialize before that existing patience and love in the relationship are exhausted. It isn't romantic to say love or patience can run out, but very few people hold an inexhaustible well of love for their wife or husband. But if there is no existing love to burn, say you aren't in a relationship with someone yet, there is no existing fuel that would make working on yourself meaningful. Therefore, when starting a relationship, only what you currently bring to the table matters. While you often hear someone say, "I can fix him," it is typically in jest, because the person knows that the person they are talking about is toxic and not actually a potential partner. In the most extreme case, it is because they have one feature, usually looks, that is so outstanding that the person is willing to give it a try. But remember, that is because that person already has huge marketplace value because of that one feature. So as soon as the toxic trait that the person was talking about fixing affects the relationship, it will break apart because there is no love yet. Every time I hear people say it is all about confidence and valuing yourself, no woman should rate herself less than a 10. All I think is,
what you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
we live in a world poisoned by excess information about fairy tale romances that don't exist and perfect partners that will never be ours. This causes people, both men and women, to grow up with false expectations. These false expectations affect people themselves and destroys their self-confidence and affects what they look for in a partner. People fall into a toxic assumption that if there is a conflict in a relationship, then it isn't meant to be. They give up instead of putting in the work. They give up on partners that don't meet their exacting expectations, and they give up on themselves. Instead of putting in the work to improve themselves and raise their value to the opposite gender, they demand that the other sex accept them as they are. Even Jesus expects you to change from your evil ways, even if he accepts you as you are to start. You have both sides demanding perfection from the other without being willing to improve themselves. Pointing out room for improvement isn't a personal attack, and being unable to accept deficiencies in oneself with enough maturity to work on those deficiencies is the most toxic, prideful, and selfish form of conceit imaginable. To expect a potential mate to accept your flaws when you won't even accept the flaws exist in the first place is the tallest of orders. So we are left with multiple generations of people raised on idealized potential partners who won't work on themselves. The women are all taught that all men are predators, and the men all learn early that every woman can destroy their lives with a single false allegation. It's no wonder that we are seeing the lowest birth rate in recorded history and the lowest marriage rate. Combine this with a school system that teaches kids that traditional morals and marriage roles are evil and promotes hookup culture, and you have a toxic soup tailor-made to churn out bitter, broken people with no hope of healthy relationships. All this stems from the root problem that affects economics across the world today. People have lost touch with what makes valuable things valuable. It doesn't matter as a man what I think makes me valuable. It matters what the woman I want to marry thinks is valuable. And that is hardwired into her DNA. A woman that wants to start a family wants a provider and a protector, a leader, and a man capable of being a loving father. She wants a strong, high-T man who can take care of business. Same for what men want. They don't want a powerful boss babe that don't need no man. A man wants to be needed. Yes, he wants a strong woman within that context, because it takes strength to be a good wife and mother. But pretending that the value of a man increases because he is incapable of violence, or a woman's desirability as a wife goes up because she has a powerful career, is simply naivete. Sure, some women want weak men, especially if she wants to dominate the relationship, and some men want a working wife. But for the vast majority of my listeners, and really most people out there, that simply isn't the case. Instead of asking why you can't get the man you want, ask what is your market value. You don't expect a realtor to show you multi-million-dollar mansions when you have a $300,000 budget. You would be laughed out of the building. Either shop within your budget or bring more value to the table. I'm not saying anyone should settle. In fact, I would hate for anyone to settle. What I want to see is people improve themselves. I want you to raise the value you bring to the table so you can legitimately shop for the mansion quality spouse. but we must all be self-aware and manage our internal expectations before making unreasonable demands on others. Don't blame all men because you can't find a man that meets your requirements. Sometimes your requirements are just silly and don't reflect reality. Become the person your ideal spouse would want to be with before you get mad about your ideal spouse not being interested. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe.